Arun stood at the edge of the wide platform, his eyes fixed on the alien city glowing under a pale sky. The air shimmered faintly with colors he had never seen on Earth, and every building seemed carved out of crystal and living vines. His heart beat faster. This was his first time stepping onto another world, and everything felt like a dream. The people around him were tall, graceful, and strange, yet not frightening. Their clothes flowed like water, catching light and scattering it in soft colors. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with polite distance. Humans were rare here. Arun tried to stay calm, but inside he felt small, just one traveler carrying the weight of Earth's name on his shoulders. The guide who welcomed him spoke gently, telling him about the city's most famous wonder, the Velvet Maze Garden. It was a place of beauty and mystery, a maze that shifted with every step, a living creation set to test the heart and mind of anyone who entered. Visitors came from far worlds to walk inside it, but not everyone found their way back to the center. Arun listened closely, fascinated. He had read about it before coming here, but hearing it from someone who had seen it made the garden feel alive already. Later, when he was alone, Arun walked through the shining streets. Towers stretched high above, yet flowers grew along the walls, their petals glowing faintly in the dusk. The whole city felt like a mixture of nature and art. As he wandered, his eyes caught sight of the tall gates leading toward the Velvet Maze Garden. The gates looked like woven branches of velvet and silver, opening into shadow and mystery. Arun stood there for a long moment, his chest tight with wonder and nervousness. Then he saw her. Among the crowd near the gate stood a girl unlike the others. Her skin was faintly luminous, her hair soft and flowing like threads of light, but her eyes were calm, steady, and strangely warm. She was speaking with two others, but for some reason, her gaze lifted and met his. It was only for a moment, yet Arun felt something stir inside him. It was not fear, not surprise, but something softer, something that made the air feel warmer. She did not smile, but she did not look away either. Arun quickly turned, pretending to study the gates again, though his mind kept replaying the brief moment. Why had she looked at him like that? Was it curiosity? Was it caution? Or was it something else he could not name? As the evening deepened, Arun returned to his quarters, but he could not sleep easily. From his window, he could see the faint glow of the Velvet Maze Garden in the distance, its shifting walls moving like a slow heartbeat under the stars. He thought of the stories he had heard that the maze revealed truths, that it guided those who dared to walk its paths. Some said it was dangerous, but others believed it offered a chance to discover what truly lay inside one's soul. Arun whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, I'll go inside." The decision felt heavy but also exciting. He was not just a visitor anymore, he was part of the story of this place now. He remembered the girl by the gate, the calm in her eyes. Something told him he would see her again. The next morning, Arun rose early. The city was quiet, bathed in soft golden light from the rising sun. He dressed simply, carrying only a small pack of supplies, and walked toward the Velvet Maze Garden. As he approached, he noticed the same girl again. She was standing near the entrance, her hand brushing lightly against the silver vines of the gate as if she was listening to them. Arun slowed his steps, unsure if he should greet her. He had no reason to speak, and yet silence felt too heavy. Before he could decide, she turned her head and met his eyes once more. This time, she tilted her head slightly, as if acknowledging him. It was a small gesture, but it filled Arun with unexpected courage. He stepped closer to the gate, the air cool and fragrant with flowers that seemed to hum softly. He felt both nervous and alive. This was the start of something he did not know what, but his heart told him it would matter. As Arun crossed the threshold of the velvet maze garden, the gates closed softly behind him. The world outside faded, and the maze stretched before him like a living dream. He felt the thrill of the unknown, a path that could lead him anywhere. And though he did not yet know her name, he had a feeling that the girl by the gate would not remain a stranger for long. The story of his journey in the velvet maze garden had begun. The velvet maze garden stretched endlessly before Arun. Its walls were alive, made of tall plants covered with velvet-like leaves that shifted gently as if breathing. The paths glowed faintly, leading in many directions. Arun took his first steps inside, his heart racing with curiosity. At first, the maze seemed calm. The air smelled sweet, and the ground was soft under his boots. Birds with long silver wings glided above the walls, their voices like soft bells. Arun smiled to himself. He had dreamed of exploring wonders beyond Earth, but standing inside the maze felt far more magical than anything he had imagined. But soon, the paths began to change. A wall that had been straight suddenly curved. A doorway he had just passed vanished, replaced by a wall of thick vines. Arun paused, frowning. The maze was alive. It shifted every few minutes, leaving him unsure which way was forward and which way was back. He tried to stay calm, but as he walked deeper, every turn seemed to lead him further away from the entrance. The garden was beautiful, but beauty was not the same as safety. His chest grew tight. "I shouldn't have come in alone," he whispered. Just then, a soft voice spoke behind him. "You'll lose yourself if you keep walking without listening." Arun turned quickly. Standing there was the same girl he had seen near the gate. Up close, she was even more striking. Her long hair shimmered faintly, her eyes deep and calm, like pools of quiet water. She wore a simple robe tied with a silver cord, and in her hand she carried a small lantern that glowed with gentle blue light. For a moment, Arun forgot the maze and only looked at her. "You," he began, then stopped, unsure what to say. The girl gave a small smile. "I thought I would find you here. You walked in without a guide. That is not wise." Arun felt embarrassed. "I wanted to see it for myself. I didn't know it would change so quickly." "It always changes," she said softly. "That is its nature. The maze listens to those who walk inside. It tests them. But it does not wish to harm." Her voice was calm, almost soothing. Arun felt his fear ease just by hearing her words. "Do you know the way out?" "Yes," she answered. "I have walked this garden since I was young. If you follow me, I will lead you back." Arun hesitated. He did not want to seem weak, yet he knew she was right. "Thank you," he said finally. "I would be glad for your help." They began to walk together. She held the lantern in front, and the maze seemed to open for her steps, paths unfolding like a flower blooming. Arun watched in wonder. "How do you do that?" he asked. "The garden knows me," she said simply. "It remembers those who respect it. It does not like pride, but it listens to kindness." Arun walked quietly for a while, thinking about her words. Then he asked, "What is your name?" "Lyra," she said, glancing at him. "And you are human?" "One of the few to visit here." "Yes. My name is Arun," he replied. "I came because I wanted to see the beauty of your world. But now I feel like the garden is greater than any words I read about it." Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Most people come to challenge it. You came to see its beauty. That is different. They walked through the twisting paths. Arun noticed the walls glowed brighter when she spoke, as if the maze itself enjoyed her presence. He felt lighter, as though the fear that had pressed on him earlier was fading away. Does the maze test everyone? Arun asked. Yes, Lyra said softly. It shows fear, or doubt, or truth. It changes with the heart of the traveler. Sometimes it guides, sometimes it confuses. But always, it teaches. Her words stayed in his mind. A garden that taught lessons, a maze that looked into the heart, that was not something humans could easily understand. Yet walking beside her, Arun felt a strange calm. When they finally reached an open clearing, Arun realized he no longer wanted to leave the maze quickly. The flowers around the clearing shone like stars, filling the air with silver dust. He turned to Lyra. Thank you for helping me. I think I would have been lost without you. You would not have been lost forever, she said gently. But perhaps you would have walked longer than you wished. The garden may test you again, Arun. He looked at her with quiet admiration. Then I hope you'll be there again too. Lyra tilted her head slightly, her eyes studying him as though weighing his words. Perhaps, she said softly. The clearing glowed brighter for a moment, and Arun felt the beginning of something new, something more than curiosity, more than wonder. He could not name it yet, but it grew stronger every time he looked at Lyra. And so, the maze had given him not just confusion and fear, but also an unexpected guide. A guide whose presence made the velvet maze garden feel less like a trap and more like a path leading towards something he could not yet see. The deeper Arun and Lyra walked into the velvet maze garden, the quieter the air became. The sound of birds faded, and even the soft hum of the glowing plants seemed to grow still. Arun felt a strange heaviness in his chest, as if the garden itself was watching him. Lyra held her lantern up, its blue glow casting soft light across the shifting walls. This is the part most travelers fear, she said calmly. The garden begins to show visions. They are not real, but they feel real. Arun slowed his steps. Visions. Of what? Of what you hide inside your heart, she replied, her voice almost like a whisper. Fear, doubt, or memory. The garden is alive. It listens. It knows. Arun's breath caught. He had always thought of himself as brave, but the idea of his own hidden fears rising before him made his palms sweat. Still, he nodded. Then I'll face them. The path narrowed until the walls curved inward, pressing close. A faint mist rose from the ground. Arun blinked as the shapes before him began to blur. He glanced at Lyra, but suddenly she seemed far away, her lantern dim, her form fading into the mist. Then the visions began. Arun found himself standing not in the garden, but on a lonely stretch of ground under a dark sky. The air was cold, and the stars above looked unfamiliar. He turned in circles, but there was no one, no city, no maze, no guide. Just emptiness. The feeling struck his chest like a weight. Alone. Far from Earth, far from family, far from anyone who knew him. He had dreamed of traveling the stars, but now the dream showed its sharp edge, the cost of leaving everything behind. His voice shook as he whispered, I don't want to be alone. His knees almost buckled, but then he heard something soft footsteps. A hand touched his shoulder. The cold vision trembled like glass struck by sound. Arun, a gentle voice said. He turned and saw Lyra, her lantern glowing brighter than before. Her eyes were steady, holding him as if she could pull him back from the edge of his fear. It is not real, she said softly. The maze only shows what you carry inside. You are not alone. Arun's throat tightened. He wanted to believe her. It felt so real. It always does, she answered. But the garden is not cruel. It shows weakness so that we can find strength. Her words sank into him, easing the weight. Slowly, the dark sky and empty land dissolved, and the maze returned. Arun let out a long breath, his chest lighter. Thank you, Lyra. Without you, I think I would have been lost in that vision. She shook her head gently. No. You would have found your way. But perhaps it would have taken longer. Arun studied her face, wondering how she could stay so calm when the maze seemed so heavy with mystery. What about you? He asked quietly. Does it test you too? For the first time, Lyra's eyes flickered with unease. She looked down at her lantern, its blue glow shifting. Yes, she said after a pause. It shows me something I do not like to admit. Before Arun could speak, the mist thickened again. This time it was Lyra who froze. Arun turned quickly, and what he saw made his chest ache. Lyra stood facing a vision of herself surrounded by shadowy figures. Their voices were low, whispering in a tongue Arun did not understand. But he could feel their meaning: disapproval, judgment, rejection. Lyra's shoulders trembled as the shadows pressed closer. Arun stepped forward. Lyra. It's not real. Her hands shook as she held her lantern tighter. They say. I should not trust you, she whispered, her voice filled with conflict. That humans cannot be part of this world. That I am foolish for walking with you. The shadows grew darker, their whispers louder. Arun's heart pounded. He could not fight them, but he could reach her. He moved to her side, his voice steady though his chest burned. Listen to me, Lyra. You helped me when I was lost. You guided me. That was real. These voices are not. She closed her eyes, her breath uneven. Arun took her free hand, firm and steady. The maze shows fear, but it cannot tell us what to choose. You chose to trust me, and I will never break that trust. That is the truth. For a moment, the shadows pressed harder. Then, slowly, they began to fade. The mist thinned, and the clearing returned. Lyra's lantern flared bright, filling the path with calm light. Lyra let out a shaky breath and looked at Arun. Her hand was still in his, and she did not pull away. You helped me, she said softly, her voice carrying both surprise and relief. Arun gave a small smile. You helped me first. Now we're even. Their hands lingered together as the silence of the garden wrapped around them. It was no longer a silence of fear, but one of peace. The maze had tested them, showing their doubts, their hidden fears. But together, they had walked through it. Arun felt something new in that silence, something warm. The velvet maze garden had not only revealed his fear of loneliness, it had also shown him that with Lyra beside him, he was no longer alone. And for the first time, he wondered if the maze wanted him to learn more than just courage. Perhaps it wanted him to learn about trust, and maybe something deeper still. The maze felt different after the trials. The mist had lifted, and the air seemed lighter, filled with the soft fragrance of blooming flowers. Arun and Lyra walked side by side, their steps unhurried. The fear that once pressed on Arun's chest had faded, replaced by something warmer, something that grew stronger each time his eyes met hers. Neither of them spoke for a while. The silence between them was not heavy, but gentle, like the quiet of a peaceful night. Arun glanced at Lyra now and then. Her lantern still glowed, though its light seemed softer, as if it no longer needed to fight against the shadows. Finally, Arun broke the silence. "The maze showed us both what we feared," he said carefully. "But I think it also showed us something else." Lyra tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "That we don't have to face it alone," he replied. She looked at him for a moment, her eyes deep and thoughtful. Then she gave a faint smile. "Perhaps that is true." They continued down the winding path until they reached a place unlike any other. The walls of the maze opened into a hidden grove. It was wide and round, the ground covered in silver flowers that glowed softly like fallen stars. Above them, the ceiling of leaves parted, letting in a beam of golden light. The whole place shimmered, as if it had been waiting for them. Lyra stopped in awe. "I have never seen this part of the maze," she whispered. "I thought I knew all its paths." Arun stepped forward, his eyes wide. "It feels secret. Like the maze only wanted us to find it together." The flowers around them released tiny glowing dust that floated in the air like sparks of light. Arun reached out his hand, letting some settle on his skin. It felt cool, almost alive. He smiled, the wonder of it filling him. Lyra walked slowly into the grove, her lantern lowering as though even it could not match the beauty around them. She brushed her fingers gently over the silver petals, and they responded by glowing brighter. "This place," she said softly, "it feels like a heart." Arun looked at her. "A heart?" She nodded, her gaze still on the flowers. "The maze is alive, remember. It tests, it guides, it teaches. Maybe this is the heart of its beauty. Maybe it only opens when two walk together." Her words sank deep into Arun's thoughts. He realized then how much he wanted to stay in this moment, not just in the garden, but here, beside her. They sat together on the soft ground, surrounded by the glowing flowers. For a long time, they simply talked. Arun told her about Earth, about the oceans that stretched for miles, the forests that changed with the seasons, and the stars that he used to watch from his window as a child. Lyra listened with quiet wonder, her eyes bright. "Your world sounds like a dream," she said. "I have never seen an ocean. I cannot even imagine water that goes farther than the eye can see." Arun smiled. "Someday, maybe you will. And when you do, I hope I'll be there to see your face when you look at it for the first time." Her cheeks warmed faintly, though she lowered her gaze as if hiding it. "You speak as though we will keep walking together," she said softly. "Don't you want to?" Arun asked. Lyra hesitated. She touched one of the silver flowers gently. "I want to. But the garden is simple compared to the world outside. Out there, people watch, and they whisper. A human and one of my people, not everyone would understand." Arun's chest tightened. He remembered the shadows in her vision, the voices that told her she should not trust him. "Do you care what they say?" he asked quietly. Her fingers stilled on the flower. She did not answer right away. The silence stretched between them, but it was not empty, it was filled with the weight of her thoughts. Finally, she looked up at him, her eyes steady. "I don't know. But I know that here, in this garden, their voices cannot reach me. And here, I feel at peace with you." Arun held her gaze, his heart beating faster. He wanted to tell her how much that meant to him, but the words stayed caught in his throat. Instead, he simply nodded, his smile soft. They stayed in the grove until the light above began to fade into the colors of dusk. When they finally rose to leave, Arun felt a quiet sadness, as though leaving a dream. But Lyra touched his arm gently. The maze has many secrets. If we return, perhaps it will show us more. Her words were simple, but to Arun they felt like a promise. As they walked back, the garden shifted again, its walls moving, its paths bending. But this time, Arun was not afraid. He had walked through fear and loneliness, and the maze had given him something greater: trust, laughter, and the warmth of a bond he could not yet name. The velvet maze garden had shown them a hidden grove, a secret heart of beauty. And deep inside, Arun knew it had also shown him the beginning of something even more precious: the growing closeness between him and Lyra, something fragile yet strong, like the silver flowers glowing softly in the dark. When Arun and Lyra left the hidden grove, the velvet maze garden slowly guided them back to the entrance. The shifting walls seemed to step aside with ease, as if the garden itself had accepted their presence. Arun felt lighter, his mind full of the memory of glowing silver flowers and the warmth of their quiet talks. For him, the maze was no longer just a wonder, it was a place where something new had begun to grow. But outside the gates, the world was waiting. The city was alive with whispers. News spread quickly in this place where travelers from many worlds gathered. People had seen the human and the alien girl walking together inside the maze. Some had seen them leave the gates side by side, and in the eyes of the watchers, it was not a small thing. A few looked with curiosity, others with silence, but there were also those who frowned. Arun noticed it first when he walked through the streets the next day. Two merchants paused their talk as he passed. A group of young men stared longer than was polite. Their voices dropped, but Arun felt the weight of their gaze. He tried to ignore it, but unease began to creep into his thoughts. When he finally met Lyra again near the garden gate, he saw the same unease reflected in her eyes. She stood straighter, her usual calm touched by a hint of worry. "You have felt it too," she said softly. Arun nodded. "People are watching." "They are not only watching," Lyra said. "They are questioning. To them, I am one of their own, and you are human. Some do not believe such paths should cross." Arun felt a heavy silence between them. "But why? I thought this world welcomed travelers." "It does," she said, her voice quiet. "But not every heart is open. Some accept only what they know, not what they do not understand." Her words stung, but not because they were harsh, because they were true. Arun looked away, his mind turning. Back on Earth, he had dreamed of discovering new worlds and forming bonds across stars. Yet now that he stood in one of those dreams, reality reminded him that bonds were not always welcomed. Still, he could not forget the way she had smiled in the hidden grove. That memory pushed against the weight of doubt. "Do you regret walking with me in the maze?" he asked carefully. Lyra's eyes widened, and for a moment, silence stretched. Then she shook her head slowly. "No," she said, her voice firm. "I do not regret it. But," she hesitated, her gaze lowering, "I fear what others may do with their words." "Words can wound, Arun. They can change how people see us, how they see me." Arun understood. It was not just about the two of them, it was about the world she lived in every day, the people she had known all her life. If they judged her, she would carry that weight, not him. That night, Arun could not sleep. He stood at his window, staring at the faint glow of the velvet maze garden in the distance. His heart pulled him back toward it, back to the place where everything felt simple, where only trust and wonder mattered. Yet he also thought of Lyra's voice, soft but heavy with worry. The next morning, he made a decision. He returned to the garden alone. The gates opened quietly, and he stepped inside. The maze welcomed him with shifting paths, but without Lyra's lantern, the glow seemed dimmer. He wandered deeper, the silence heavy. Each step reminded him of her calm guidance, her gentle words, the way she had reached for his hand in the mist. He whispered to himself, "I wish she were here." What Arun did not know was that Lyra had followed him. She had seen him enter and could not ignore the thought of him walking alone. When she caught up to him inside the maze, her voice broke the silence. "You should not have come without me." Arun turned quickly, surprised. Relief washed over him at the sight of her lantern's glow. "I didn't want to trouble you," he said. "I thought, maybe if I walked alone, people would stop speaking." Lyra stepped closer, her eyes steady. "And did you believe the garden would be kinder without me?" Arun gave a small, rueful smile. "No. It's not the garden I was worried about. It's the world outside it." Her gaze softened. "Then let the world speak as it wishes. Inside the maze, there are no whispers, no judgments. Only truth." The silence stretched between them, but it was no longer heavy. She had chosen to follow him, even knowing what others thought. Arun felt his chest lighten. Together, they began to walk again. The paths shifted, the walls shimmered, and the velvet maze garden surrounded them with quiet mystery. Arun no longer felt alone in its twisting passages, and for the first time, he realized something important: it did not matter what the city thought. What mattered was the bond that grew stronger every step he took with her. Even in doubt, the garden had guided them back to each other. The air inside the velvet maze garden grew heavier as Arun and Lyra walked deeper. The paths twisted more sharply now, the walls rising taller, their velvet leaves closing above them until the sky was hidden. A quiet tension filled the air, as if the garden itself was preparing something greater than before. Lyra walked slightly ahead, her lantern glowing bright blue, casting soft circles of light across the shifting ground. Arun followed close behind, his heart steady but expectant. He knew they were reaching the heart of the maze's trials. "The garden is restless today," Lyra murmured. Her voice was calm, but Arun caught the note of unease. "It waits to see what choice we will make." "Choice?" Arun asked. "Yes," she said softly. "Every traveler who comes this far must choose a path. One path leads back to safety. The other leads deeper into the unknown. Few dare to take the second path, for no one knows what lies ahead." Arun's steps slowed. "And if we take the wrong one?" Lyra looked back at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the lantern's light. "The garden does not punish. But it remembers. And it reveals what is hidden in the heart of the one who chooses." They soon reached a wide crossing. Two paths stretched before them, both glowing faintly, both inviting in their own way. The left path shone with golden light, peaceful and calm, as if promising safety. The right path shimmered with deep blue shadows, beautiful yet uncertain, leading into darkness. Arun felt the garden's silence pressing on him, waiting. He turned to Lyra. "Which one do we take?" Her lantern flickered, as if uncertain too. She shook her head. "The choice is yours. The garden brought you here. It tests you, Arun, not me." For a moment, doubt filled him. The golden path looked easier, brighter. But something inside told him it was not the path he had come for. His journey had not been about safety, it had been about discovery, about trust, about bonds that grew stronger with each trial. Arun took a slow breath. Then I choose the unknown. Lyra's eyes widened, surprise flickering across her calm face. But then, slowly, she smiled. Very well. If you walk into the unknown, then I will walk beside you. Together, they stepped onto the blue-shadowed path. The moment their feet touched it, the maze shifted violently. The walls rose higher, the air grew colder, and the path shook as if alive. Arun felt fear press against his chest, but he did not stop. He kept moving forward, his hand brushing against Lyra's, drawing courage from her presence. The darkness grew deeper until even the lantern's glow seemed weak. Then, suddenly, the ground opened into a vast clearing. Arun stopped, his breath catching in wonder. The clearing was shaped like a heart, wide and glowing. Velvet roses bloomed everywhere, their petals deep crimson, their stems shimmering with silver light. The air smelled sweet, richer than any garden on earth. Above them, the ceiling of the maze parted, and beams of starlight poured down, filling the space with gentle light. Lyra's lantern dimmed on its own, no longer needed. She lowered it, her face lit by the glow of the roses. "This," she whispered. "I have heard of it, but I thought it was only a tale." The heart of the garden. Arun stepped forward slowly, his eyes wide. So this is what the maze hides. They walked through the velvet roses, their soft petals brushing against their arms. Each flower seemed alive, turning toward them as they passed. Arun reached out and touched one, and it opened, releasing a faint glow of silver dust into the air. The whole clearing shimmered like a living dream. Lyra stood still, her gaze sweeping across the roses. The maze does not open this place to just anyone. It waits for those who walk with truth. It waits for those who walk together. Her words struck Arun deeply. He turned to her, his voice quiet but firm. "Then it chose us." For a long moment, they simply stood there, the glowing roses around them, the starlight shining down. The world outside, the whispers, the doubts, the judgments felt far away. Here, in the heart of the maze, only truth mattered. And the truth was simple: they had faced fear together, trusted each other, and chosen the unknown side by side. Lyra looked at Arun, her eyes soft, her voice barely above a whisper. "You were not afraid to step into the darkness." Arun shook his head. "Not when you were with me." The silence that followed was not empty but full of understanding, full of a bond that words could barely hold. Around them, the roses glowed brighter, as if the maze itself rejoiced in their choice. In that moment, Arun knew he had found more than just beauty in the velvet maze garden. He had found a truth that stretched beyond stars and worlds. He had found trust, courage, and a bond that felt unshakable. And though the path ahead was still unknown, he no longer feared it. Because whatever it held, he would not walk it alone. The heart of the velvet maze garden glowed brighter with each passing moment. Arun and Lyra stood among the shining roses, their fragrance wrapping around them like a gentle promise. The garden, alive with unseen power, seemed to hold its breath, as though it waited for what they would decide next. Arun looked around, still amazed by the beauty of the place. He had never seen anything so alive, so full of meaning. It was more than flowers and light, it felt like the very soul of the maze. His chest rose slowly as he breathed in the air, feeling stronger, calmer, as though the garden itself poured courage into him. Beside him, Lyra touched a rose, her fingers brushing lightly against its velvet petals. The flower opened wider at her touch, releasing a faint silver glow that floated like stardust between them. She smiled softly, then turned her gaze to Arun. "The heart does not reveal itself to just anyone," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was warmth in it too. It opens only to those who carry truth inside them. Arun met her eyes. Truth? Yes, she nodded. Truth of the heart. The garden sees through fear, through doubt, through masks. It has seen you, Arun. That is why it opened for you. Arun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, not just me. It opened because of us. We walked together, trusted each other. That was the truth it saw. Her eyes softened. She looked at him for a long while, as if searching his face for any sign of doubt. But there was none. What she found instead was sincerity, the kind that could not be hidden. Then, without warning, the ground beneath the roses began to shift. A circle of light rose from the earth, surrounding them. The roses bent slightly inward, their glow growing brighter, as though bowing before the two of them. Lyra's lantern flickered once more and then faded completely. She held it close but knew it was no longer needed. The garden itself lit their way now. The maze is giving us a gift, she whispered. It has chosen to mark this moment. Arun felt the circle of light tighten around them, wrapping them in a gentle embrace. For a moment, he closed his eyes. He could hear the faint hum of the roses, like the beating of a great heart. It filled him with peace, but also with strength. When he opened his eyes again, he saw Lyra standing close, her silver hair shimmering in the light, her eyes shining softly. She looked both otherworldly and familiar, as though she had always been meant to stand there with him. The garden wants us to remember, Arun said quietly. It wants us to carry this with us, no matter where we go. Lyra nodded. And perhaps, it wants us to show others that bonds between worlds are not only possible, but powerful. Arun's lips curved into a small smile. Then we will carry this truth together. The circle of light slowly faded, but something had changed. The roses no longer glowed faintly, they shone brighter than before, casting a path that stretched out ahead of them, leading deeper but gentler, no longer threatening. It was as if the maze itself had become calm, at peace with their choice. Hand in hand, Arun and Lyra followed the glowing path. They walked without fear, for they both knew that whatever lay ahead, they had already passed the greatest test. After a while, the walls of the maze began to lower. The velvet leaves slowly thinned, and light from the outside world poured in. Soon, they stepped out of the maze, back into the open air. But the world outside was no longer the same. The clearing where they had first entered the garden now bloomed with velvet roses, glowing faintly as if touched by the memory of what had happened. The whispers that once filled the garden were gone, replaced by soft silence. Lyra looked around, her voice full of wonder. The maze has changed. It carries your mark now. Arun turned to her, surprised. My mark. She smiled gently. No, our mark. For a moment, he said nothing. He simply looked at her, realizing how far they had come, how much had been risked, how much had been gained. The maze had not only tested them, it had given them something unbreakable. He took a step closer to her, his voice firm but soft. Wherever I go from now on, I want you there. This garden showed me what really matters. It's not the path, or the maze, or the fear. It's walking it together. Lyra's eyes grew bright, and her answer was simple. Then together, always. The roses swayed gently, as if moved by the wind, though the air was still. It was the garden's way of blessing their vow. And so, under the silent watch of the velvet maze garden, two hearts from different worlds made a promise not bound by distance or time. The maze had revealed its greatest truth: love, when honest and fearless, was the strongest force of all. And beyond the stars, where others would one day speak of the garden, their story would be told, the tale of a human and an alien girl who walked through shadows, chose truth, and found passion in the heart of the velvet maze.